Hello. Gosh, this chair is so comfortable. It's really quite nice just to sit. But I can't do that, can I? It's lovely to see you all this morning. I'm Sally Smith of West London Chambers. I actually live next door to the caretaker's cottage, so for me it was the easiest commute. Elise and I met, I can't remember when it was, but 3 or 4 years ago, and we sort of gelled, as sometimes women do, and we just started talking and exchanging details about various people we know. And Elise came up with the bright idea of organising a women in business group. So that's what we did. Elise does the ideas, and I sort of make it, I make it happen. It's a dream team. Sometimes I have to rein her in a bit, because the ideas just get wilder and wilder. But West London Chambers, we're a highly active not-for-profit organisation. We're the second largest chamber of commerce in London. We've got just over 2,000 members and a database of 8,000. I think since the Me Too movement, our women in business events have sort of gone up a notch. We used to hold them way back when. I've been in post since 2001, so a long old time. As I say, since the Me Too movement, the women in business groups have got their own energy. So we've got an awful lot going on. Next Friday, 7th of March, is our Festival of Business, which is a business-to-business exhibition at Holiday Inn, Brentford Lock. There's a stakeholder breakfast with the leaders of our 3 councils. We cover Hounslow, Ealing and Hammersmith and Fulham. I've also got Justin Urquhart-Stewart, the red-braced economist, speaking. He's well worth a listen. So that's Friday the 7th of March. On the 12th of March, I've got another women's event. That's at Sanderson Design. I think Nikki, I'm seeing you, you booked your place, well done that woman. That's going to be really exciting. Sanderson used to be based in Chiswick at the turn of the 1900s. They then had a huge fire, they then moved out, and they've now moved back. And I love social history, and it's lovely that Sanderson are back in Chiswick with their lovely wallpapers. And then on the 27th of March, we have got a breakfast at Kindred in Hammersmith and Fulham. That is another Women in Business event, which we'll be doing, as I say, 27th of March. So we're highly active. What you put in is what you get out with any membership organisation. If you're not a chamber member, please seriously consider joining us. You know, we're a small business. You know, the more businesses we attract, the more things we can do like this. So that's enough about us. I would now like to introduce the panel. So first up is Maireys Leanders. Did I get that right? Excellent. Do you want to sort of talk a bit about what you do? Maireys is the head teacher here, but you're also head of other schools, yes?
Over to you.
Hello, thank you, Sally. So my name is Maireys Leanders. I'm head teacher at Brentford, but I also work in a primary school in Hounslow, which is called Worthall Primary School. So I work across the two and split my week across the two. So thank you very much for coming along today. We actually ran one of these events in the school probably about 12 years ago. I just mentioned that to Sally because I've been here an awful long time. And it was really lovely. We actually met in our sixth form centre, which is on the other side of the school. And out of that meeting, the school made quite a lot of links. And some of the marketing that you see around the school, the early days of that marketing, was made through a connection that I made in that group, who was a woman who was the head of marketing at Pernod. And she came in to help us with some of the school's marketing work. So I think events like this are incredibly valuable for making links. The other thing I want to say is I've met a couple of people here today who went to girls' schools. And it turns out they're a bit of a dying breed, which is really, really sad. I didn't go to a girls' school. I really wished I had gone to a girls' school. But there was an article in the Sunday Times newspaper last week talking about the fact that quite a number of girls' schools are in the independent sector, and they are beginning to close down because they're quite small. And also there's been a kind of move away from girls' schools over the last couple of years, and I think that is really sad. And I think the few people I've spoken here to today hear about the impact of girls' schools, I think is the confidence that the girls' schools give girls. And I hope you've seen that today in our lovely girls who are here, who've been helping out. But it really does make such a difference. And I think it's really sad that, you know, organisations like girls' schools are fading away, because I think we'll really lose something for women. And so events like this, you know, about women coming together, are also equally important. I better shut up now. Do you want me to talk about my background?
Yes, yes.
I've been asked to talk a little bit about how I got to the post I'm in, where it started, etc. And I think for me it kind of started in my back garden. So I grew up in a council estate in West London, and my family, I had one sister, and all of the kids on our street used to come to our back garden because my parents used to have loads of biscuits in the cupboards, and so everybody always wanted to play in our house. And I remember being 7 and lining all of the children up in my garden for their lessons, and I used to absolutely love marking their work. So I'd sit them in rows and I'd mark their books, I'd give them paper and mark their work and take a register. I absolutely hate marking now as a teacher, but I loved it as a 7-year-old. And I think probably that's where it started, really. But when I went to school, I didn't go to a great school, and you know, most of the girls that went to my school ended up sort of getting jobs in the sort of local hairdressers or dropping out of school. And teachers weren't particularly interested in championing the kids who went to the school. The difference, I think, for me was that my dad had come from the West Indies. He'd grown up in Jamaica, and when he came to England he was determined that his two daughters were going to university. I didn't really get it, because all the girls around me just wanted to go and get their hair blow dried and look good, and that's obviously what I wanted to do. But my dad was really insistent, absolutely not, you're going to go to university. So I actually left school with not huge amounts of GCSEs, because I'd spent quite a lot of time at school just chatting to my friends and talking about where we could go out every weekend. And when I left school, I ended up going to college in Harrow, which wasn't far from where I lived, and actually the college itself was full of children, lots of whom had been to independent schools up until they got to college level, and most of those children in the college I chose to go to, all of their parents thought they were going to university. So I then got kind of consumed in this environment and these peer groups where people were like, yeah, we go to university, and that made a real difference to me. So environments do really matter. And I then decided to do my A-levels there. I took a year out, a gap year, which I absolutely loved. I went travelling around Southeast Asia. I actually worked for what was Agfa on the Great West Road, which is now the Sega building. And I think it was that year that I took out that made me determined to go to university, because I worked in this office environment, and all I did was filing every day. And the woman who supervised me, who'd been there for like 40 years, kept sort of telling me how to file. You know, you do A, then B, then C. And I remember thinking, I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. So I went off and I went travelling for the year. And I came back and I thought, I'm definitely going to go to university. I did a social sciences degree, absolutely loved it. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at the end of that. Knew I loved holidays and travelling, and thought, oh, well, maybe I'll teach then, because you get 6 weeks off in the summer. And I quite like young people as well. So ended up applying for a teaching qualification, and actually did my teaching practice here. So I was 22. And I did my first bit of training here, but it was actually my second teaching practice, because the first one I did in an independent girls' school in Surbiton, where all of the girls stood up when you walked in the room and said, "Good morning, miss." And I then came here, and this was, you know, 20, 30 odd years ago, and this school was a very different place, and it was, you know, full of really challenging children. And I came here and I thought, oh, this looks really nice. And then I met some of the girls, and at that time the school, although it was a Hounslow school, many of the girls came from like White City and Shepherd's Bush. They were great fun, but they didn't want to do anything. So I did my teaching practice here. I went to a much easier school down the other end of the local authority, worked there as initially as an RE teacher, was head of department there, and then I always had a special place for this school. there was something about it that that made me always want to return here. And so a job came up here. My head teacher, I remember her saying to me, "Oh, you don't want to go back there, it's really tough." But I did, and I came back, and I've been here ever since, and absolutely loved the school. So yeah, that's my journey really, and why I'm here. I think my advice going forward, and something I often say to the girls, is about having that confidence to choose to do new things, and also to try again. I actually failed my GCSE in maths. I hate maths, and I could never get it. But I got it on my third attempt. And I often talk to the girls about that, and really strangely, I still have nightmares about my maths GCSE to this very day. And I'm now going in and observing maths lessons at A-level. But initially, I just couldn't get it. And it was the one thing, you know, thinking about teaching, I thought, God, I'm never going to be able to get my maths GCSE, I'll never be able to teach, but I did eventually. So I think it is about trying again and having the confidence to do that. So I've probably said too much, but thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I failed my Latin GCSE twice, but the second fail was a better fail. Do you know what I mean? I was getting there, but I never actually got it. Right. Next up is Ruth Cadbury, the MP for Brentford and Isleworth, who also lives locally.
Yes, thank you very much, Sally. And I was once on the governing body. I don't know whether I was on your interview panel, but I would absolutely agree that Brentford School for Girls has changed massively, and thanks to your leadership and these words that are around the walls really do show what you've achieved, and the girls here have achieved so much, and it's a very, very different place in all the positive ways, and you're actually really lucky to come to Brentford School for Girls and do make the most of the opportunities. So, right, Sally gave us a task based on that quote, give me a boy when he is 7 and I will give you the man, basically saying that if you know a child's background, what they're like when they're 7, you'll know what they'll end up with. Now, that shouldn't be true, and schools like Brentford enable you to be whoever give you the groundwork, the foundations, to be whoever you want to be and not be held back or defined by your background, your parents, and so on. So I asked my mother if she could remember what I wanted to be when I grew up, when I was a child, and she says, I don't think you wanted to be anything. She had no recollection, and neither do I, of me having any particular ambition one way or the other. And I think part of that message is you don't have to. People say to you all the time when you're growing up, what do you want to, and even now, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? You don't have to have an answer to that question. It's okay to say, I don't know, but I'm going to take the opportunities that come up. Some students may definitely want to be a doctor or a lawyer or be very successful in business. And that's great to have that vision, but it's not essential. So my route, the first thing to say about politicians and my colleagues in Parliament, come from a massive range of backgrounds, of experiences, of academic achievement or none. Remember, Angie Rayner, the Deputy Prime Minister, left school at 16. And now she's the Deputy Prime Minister and the Secretary of State for a massive department with a whole load of responsibilities. So that just shows, that you should not be defined by your background to be successful. My background is actually probably, in a way, the opposite end of the spectrum. My name's Ruth Cadbury, and yes, I do come from the Cadbury family. But that isn't just about being successful in business. My great, we're not just sort of a business family, although I'm not. I never worked in business. But we are Quakers, and our social values run through our faith and how we live our lives. And my great-grandfather he made a fortune, and he put a lot of that money into charity, and he said he wanted to spend his charity money not on running and funding soup kitchens, although he did some of that, and we're talking about the depression in between the wars, but he said, I want to make sure my money goes to understanding why we have soup kitchens and what we can do to stop there being a need for soup kitchens. So he was one of a whole number of radical philanthropists who use their money for social good. So that element of social justice, I think, did inform me without me knowing it while I was a child. It probably helped to determine why I am a Labour Party member and why I joined the Labour Party. What actually triggered me to join the Labour Party was when I was a student. Margaret Thatcher became the Conservative Prime Minister of the UK, and I feared, and we were proved right, that just how much damage she would do to this country's industry, and therefore to the working class communities, particularly in the manufacturing and mining areas of this country, and didn't put the North Sea oil into funds that would then build and rebuild our industrial heritage, our industrial future and foundations in a new way to be able to be a stronger country than we probably be a stronger country economically than we ended up being. I joined the Labour Party. I came to London after I graduated. I did get work, but I became a councillor, an elected councillor, a Labour councillor on Hounslow Council. So I was a young councillor and ended up being a councillor for 25 years. Most of that time I was in a senior role. I was chair of the planning committee. I was the cabinet member for children's services and education. I was deputy leader after 2010. I was lead member for regeneration, so I was involved with the thinking that became the land south of the High Street in Brentford, the regeneration of Hounslow Town Centre. So I had those roles, and then the Labour Party, we lost the seat in the parliamentary seat in 2010, so we needed a Labour candidate to fight the seat which had been won by the Conservatives for 2015, when the 2015 election. So I put my name forward and was selected by Labour Party members here to be the Labour candidate in the election. So I was elected in 2015. I've had a really interesting variety of roles in Parliament, in opposition until July last year, when we were elected as the government. Now I'm actually not in government. I'm not a minister. I thought I might be the prisons minister, but actually a man called James Timpson got that job, and he's far better qualified than I was to be the prisons minister. So we had an election across Parliament for the chairs of the Select Committee. So I am the chair of the Transport Select Committee, which means we hold the government and all transport providers to account for transport policy and transport delivery. So we're doing some work now on buses in rural areas. We don't know how lucky we are in London compared with most of England in terms of bus capacity. So that's what I would do. The one key lesson you asked us to give, I would say, particularly for whether you have a clear route and a clear ambition, or whether you're not sure what you want to do, and certainly this is true for me, is take all the opportunities that come about, whether it's a social activity, whether it's an after-school activity, whether it's a club, whether it's a job. Even if they're small opportunities, take them. What's on your CV is, you know, as you go up a career ladder or across a set of career steps, your professional qualifications are only probably less than half, and for many jobs there is no professional route. What else you can bring that you can put on your CV? So if you have been working in a coffee shop, you will be learning teamworking, leadership, dealing with difficult customers, dealing with difficult situations. use those opportunities. You may be running a youth club in your place of faith, you may be at university. Don't just think of university as an academic journey. Use it, take other opportunities while you can, and I recognise that many of you will also have to earn and work while you're studying, but that's my sort of lesson I would take. And there was a take action point. I would say look at joining the Labour Party, but if you are interested in what's going on in the world, in the local community, out in the world, you can make a difference. I think I made a difference when I was a councillor. I persuaded Council to take Brentford Football Club seriously and make sure they stayed in Brentford. I persuaded my colleagues to introduce the London living wage as a minimum for everyone who worked for the council and for council contractors. And I got the zebra crossing put in on Windmill Road outside the Globe pub. Little things, bigger things. But you can do that. You can join a campaign group. You could start a campaign group. I met some brilliant young people who started a national food nutrition. They're campaigning to get free school lunches in every school, but also that school meals and advertising for children around food is based on healthy food principles. So there's just one example of some young people I met who were in sixth form when they started this organisation. I can't remember what it's called. So don't take what you see around you for granted. You could make a difference, probably with other people.
Thank you very much, Sue. Now I know who I'm come to whinge to about the number 65 bus. Thank you. What a nightmare.
School councils often look internally at things like the policy around the lunch break and so on. School councils can, and I think should, think about what's going on outside the school gates that affects students in the school.
Like the 65 bus.
Thank you very much indeed. Next up is Elise Brown, who I gave a little bit of a chat about. Elise is a music agent, and she is, and also runs the wonderful charity Mama Haven. Elise.
Morning. I've got a lovely chance to speak to a couple of young people. I was also speaking at a young people event yesterday with my day job hat on. So as Sally mentioned, I'm Elise Brown. I am the chair and founder of Mama Haven, which is a charity which helps low-income mums get into high-income work through training. And to understand why I created that, it's probably best to understand my background. So my day job is I am a classical music agent. I've been in the music industry for 20 years. I've actually been in the entertainment industry since I was 6. I went to stage school. I come from a very, very traditional Caribbean background. My parents came over from the Caribbean to work for the NHS. We were in a household where we all had to play instruments. We had to play piano from 7, and then I had to play a second instrument from 11. And I had a very fierce Russian teacher that my parents would send us to. We weren't a very wealthy family, but they found the money to spend on music because it was very important. Because in the Caribbean, my dad played the organ and the violin. My mum didn't have much money growing up, but her mum had built a school underneath their house for all the poor kids in the area, and she taught them all. So education and learning was at the forefront of our home. So I would spend every day at school. I would spend every after school. I would either be doing piano, clarinet, saxophone, orchestra, wind band, concert band, choir, and the weekend also doing stage school. But I did do a lot of campaigning in school because I had brothers, and my brothers got to do a lot of sports. And I went to an all-girls school in Hammersmith, and they didn't do a lot of sports, they did netball. And I was a bit of a tomboy, and I didn't like netball. I wanted to do rugby, and I wanted to do hockey. So I campaigned, and I got a group of girls together, and I started the rugby and the hockey team, and I was captain of both, because I wanted to be like my brothers. So you can do what you can do at school. So I would say my advocating started very, very young. So when I was young, I wanted to work in music, but I didn't really understand what that meant. And all my dad said to me, luckily I was the youngest of the four, so I didn't get the, you need to be a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer. They gave up by the time they got to me. So he said, you just need to be able to support yourself and make money. So I was like, okay, father, I take that. So I did lots of GCSEs. I was actually good at maths GCSE, sorry. I did my maths GCSE in year 10, sorry. And I did an extra maths GCSE in year 11. So I was really good at school. And I loved maths and I loved music. They were the two things I concentrated most on. So I did my, obviously, music GCSE. I did a music A-level. And then I went on to do a music degree at the University of Liverpool, where I currently still guest lecture on music management. So post-university, I had no idea what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work in the music industry, so I applied for lots and lots of internships. Internships are a great way of sort of putting your toe in the water and figuring out what you want to do. Back in my day, you weren't paid for internships, you were just given subsistence. So you made maybe some lunch money and a travel bursary. Now you get paid for an internship, which is great. So luckily, my parents supported me, so I did an internship with the Association of British Orchestras, who are the governing body for all orchestras in the UK. And they have this amazing conference they do once a year, where all the orchestras from the UK and all over the world come, and you get to sort of meet different people. And my manager then, they'd never had someone that looked like me as their intern. Most people were white and middle class, and he took a punt and took me on. And he said, at the conference, that's your opportunity to get a job. Go and sell yourself. And I was like, oh gosh, how am I going to do that? But luckily remember I said I went to stage school. So I had, every Saturday for 10 years, I was learning to sell myself, because I was having casting agents, directors, different people coming in, looking at us thinking, oh, are you going to be in a show? Are you going to be in that? I wasn't that good, but I learned how to sell myself. And there I met an agent, and I was like, I love what you do, can you tell me a bit about the role? She's like, I've just employed an assistant, but you'll keep your name on file. And 2 months later, she called me back because a job became available. I had a quick chat on the phone, and I got the job. So it's about network. So I have to say, even at your age, it's really, really key to network as much as possible, because it does make the difference. And there's lots of extracurricular things you can do. Houses are a great borough, there's lots of opportunities to take them as much as you can. My day job, I manage lots and lots of classical musicians. For those in the room, I managed Julian Lloyd-Webber for the past 20 years, but I also manage a wealth of different people across opera, orchestra, composing, film, TV, and ballet. So I've done that for a very long time. I created my own company 5 years ago because I was made redundant on maternity leave twice. And when I was made redundant on maternity leave, I would go to lots of different spaces where I'd meet lots of lovely middle-class mums. We'd have lovely spread like this, and I'd look around the room and I'd be like, oh, there's no socioeconomic diversity in the room. There were no low-income mums in the room. The mums who were struggling with their kids, the ones who were just making ends meet. And I thought, that's really disgraceful, that they're the ones that need the help, because I could talk my way into another role, which I did. I went back into a senior agent role. But who's championing these women? And that's where the idea for Mama Haven came about, was to allow women an opportunity to get into high income work so they can support kids like you, because we know, the Dreyfus Roundtree Foundation says kids who do extracurricular activities have greater outcomes in life. But how can you do that if you can't afford it? If you're barely affording to, feed your kids, how can you afford to pay for them to do piano or clarinet or whatever? I was lucky my parents were sent to England to better their life, but my mum had to go back to work after 6 weeks, after each of us. But they supported each other. Not everyone's in that situation. There are a lot of single mums, and how can we as an organisation support them? So we do training, we do confidence training, CV workshops. We did a Canva workshop from someone who wanted to create their own businesses. We do lots of things, and we're always open to ideas and collaborations. And the idea for the Women in Business Breakfast was to build that community, because when we support each other, we uplift each other. And since then, we've had a number of people across the network support the mums that we care for. We hosted our first ever Women into Work conference in January, kindly supported by the Chambers and a number of our corporate partners. And what we did there is we had a creche. So the mums could come and drop their kids off and talk to each of the different partners, each of the different jobs that were available, employers. We had a massage chair, we had facials, we had makeup, we had goodie bags, we had all of that, so they could be treated. And we had one mum that came, and this really stuck with me. She had sadly left a domestic violence situation. She had 4 kids. She dropped all 4 in the creche, and she took her time and spoke to everyone. And I cried, I'm not going to lie, I did, because I had a trustee who said, you don't need the creche, you don't need it. And she was a very middle class mum from Chiswick, and she didn't understand it was needed. She was no longer a trustee, because I fought for that, because I said, we need the creche. And in January we saw why we needed the creche, and Sally was there, and it was quite an emotional event, and it was amazing. And I've since had emails from the children's centres we work with, and they deal with people who are in abject poverty, who are really struggling. And if we could just do that for one day, what else can we do? So I really love what Ruth says about social mobility. I'm really lucky. I run an international company. I get to travel the world. I get to go to some amazing places and sit in some fantastic concert halls. And one of my biggest achievements happened in 2023, which I'd love to tell you about. I manage a composer called Anthony Davis. He won the Pulitzer Prize, which is one of the biggest prizes in America, for his opera Central Park 5, which we were opening again in Detroit in May. Bear in mind, Donald Trump tried to get those guys the death penalty, so that's going to be a fun trip for me. Anyway, in 2023, we opened his opera Malcolm X at the Met. The Metropolitan Opera is the biggest opera house in the world. We had a 90% black and global majority audience. 60% of the audience were under 40. That is unheard of in opera, and I was really proud to be part of that. So you can achieve anything, girls, believe me. There is adversity, but lean on your peers, and there's a fantastic women around here, and from someone who came from an all-girls school, there's so much that you can do.
Thank you very much. Always inspiring, thank you. I'm aware of time, so we're running a bit late, but we will get there. Right, next up is Laxmi Pudaru. Did I get that? You are an ex-student from this school, so please, over to you.
I don't know how I'm going to follow her up, but I, like she said, I went to Brentford. I actually left 5 years ago, so the year 11s now would have been year 7 when I was here. Miss Linas is my head teacher. I didn't get into trouble. I was a very, very quiet child, I would say. Like, I didn't stand out. Like, I wasn't anything loud, screaming, or anything like that. Miss Miners probably wouldn't agree with me, but I would say so. I think I had a lot of, like, coming into year 7 in a new school, it was a bit scary. And I know I said this last time I came here before as well, when I spoke to year 11. These words up here, these 6 words, I know that we just see them as houses in Brentford School, but genuinely they really do represent you. I think now I look back at it, all of these things, genuinely, I was part of Reflective. And I think it really, really did, it does build your character. And I think, I used to remember going into assemblies being, these words are drilled into your head every single day. And you think it doesn't make a difference, but it does. So yeah, that's what I would say about Brentford. But I think, I'll talk to you a little bit about what I do. So I am still in university. I've literally just turned 21. So next year will be my last year. I study law, corporate law. The reason why I'm at a Women in Business event is because I also run the first female-owned car customs garage, which I know is a bit, no one ever looks at me and thinks that that's what I do. But yeah, that's what I've opened. And it has been a very big success, I would say. It's literally all female friendly. We completely talk through everything with the people that we work with. And I would say that we're actually open in Brentford, so we're not too far from here. And yeah, so I opened 3-4 months ago, and we already need a bigger place because we cannot keep up with the demand at the moment, so it's insane. We nearly hit 1 million, so it's just been a crazy journey. Honestly, I don't know how. So I would say that if I talk to you a little bit about my background, sorry guys, I'm very like, I talk too much, so like, it's just a lot of waffle, but just bear with me. So I actually came from a single mum. My mum left a domestic violence situation, so I came here from Holland when I was 5. I had no English, and my mom said I had this horrible Dutch accent when I was trying to learn English. So I went from knowing 5 languages, which I do now, thank God, to only learning English. And it was a big thing for me, it was a really problem because I had this really strong Dutch accent that kept coming through. And I think this is kind of when I realized that even though I was a quiet kid, I was a bit sassy, and I broke through a lot of things because I literally trained myself to have complete British accent, which I do now. My sister doesn't. If she speaks, you can definitely hear that it's not the same. But yeah, so like I said, I came from a single mum. We literally were completely poor when we came here. My mum, I think she came with £50 in a bank account. So I grew up in a hostel, basically, like when these things happen in situations, you go to a hostel. I was in like a mother-daughter unit with me, my sister, and my mum. And I think my mum, she would love to be here, honestly. But she's probably, I would say, 100% the person that's made me so strong, because I think watching what she went through, my sister was too young, but I watched it. I think your brain is very aware from that age. And it was a lot. And I think I kept telling myself all the time, like, oh, you know, my mom's not a very emotional person, all this type of stuff. So I was just thinking, why are you not crying? Why are you not upset? Blah, blah, blah. But it was complete strength. And I think it definitely taught me a lot on how to be strong. I'm not saying, girls, you can't cry. Of course you can cry. I cried all the time sometimes over silly things as well. But yeah, and I think coming from that background, when I came to, I actually went to Hounslow Town Primary School, and then I came to Brentford School for girls. My mom was so adamant on putting me in a girls' school. She was like, you're not mixing with boys, nothing is ever gonna happen like that, you're gonna, like, no boy interactions until you finish GCSEs. So she was disappointed, obviously, when I didn't do my GCSEs because COVID hit. So I was actually in the year group that didn't sit their GCSEs. So we all got our predicted grades, we finished school early, it was just like a whirlwind. I remember COVID was so scary. And then I kind of sat in COVID and I was like, I can't really do anything, school's not open, what am I going to be doing? So when things started opening up again, I actually had the opportunity to work for Audi on Great West Road. There's like a big car dealership, you probably drove past it today if you're coming from this way. So yeah, I started working there. I started off as part-time. They have a really, really intense sales program. I was going to 6 months at the same time, so it was really, really difficult to keep up with that. But I stayed persistent and stuff, and then I just realized how much I love cars. If you guys walk out today, you'll see my car. It's completely kitted out. It's just insane. I definitely have a lot of races on the road sometimes, and men always try to overtake me to work. But yeah, so that's kind of where the love for cars came and all this stuff. And then I just kind of like, I realized that it was actually scary for women to come into the dealership. I didn't think this was a thing. And then I was so blessed because I had like mums that wanted to talk to me. And just imagine in the whole building, there's like 30 sales executives, half for used cars, half for new cars, and there's no women. Not one woman works in that building. So I was the youngest and I was the only woman. So it was really, really challenging. And I think I had a lot of men in my team that were really condescending, you can't do this, you don't know what you're talking about. And it was really, really hard to work with. I was lucky I had a really good showroom manager who never let anybody tell me that I can't do something. But it was really challenging, and I think I got to the point where, because I was sitting my A-levels at the same time and doing all this stuff, I was like, I can't, it's too much pressure. And it was a bit of a shame because I really loved that role. And then when I stopped and I stepped back and I did my A-levels, and then I took a gap year. Now, Ms. Dina said she took a gap year as well. It really is very life-changing, I would say. My mom said, you can take a gap year as long as you go back to university. You have to go to university. She was really adamant on that, because my mom didn't have the same opportunity. So I was like, okay, first person going to university in my family, and I'm already taking a year off. But yeah, so I got the offer. I deferred it a year. I was really happy to get into law. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a lawyer and all this stuff. And then I actually passed my driving test, and then I realized how crap my car looked, like, being honest with you. It was really small, and I was just like, I don't really, this isn't really like giving, like, worked at Audi for like 3 years, So I started customizing it. I bought body kit for it. I did all these crazy things to it, and I was thinking in my head, like, okay, like, this is actually, it looks much better now. It's completely unrecognizable. And then I was talking to my friends and stuff like that, people around me, and they were saying that they've never thought of stuff like this because they don't want to walk into a garage. And I was like, what's the barrier? I don't understand. Because I was lucky enough, like, my friend owned a garage, so he would let me and teach me how to do stuff to my car, like tinting, all this type of stuff. So I was getting really good at it, and it was just for fun. Like, it genuinely just started for fun. Like, I wasn't thinking about a business at all. And then it got to the point where my friend was like, you've got a gift, like, you need to come work for me. And I was like, I don't think I want to work for anybody else. I think I want to work for myself. So I actually posted it was a TikTok, proper Gen Z, innit? It was a TikTok I posted, and I asked girls, it was basically just like what do people think of this? And the response I got was crazy. It was absolutely incredible. Over 3 million views, like tens of thousands of comments, and I was just like, I'm doing this 100%. So all of that stuff happened, and then obviously money was a thing, and I had to think about this stuff. So everything I made in Audi, I had really good commission because I was a really good salesperson. I put everything into the business, and my best friend, she's sitting in the audience right now, she is literally the person that just drove me to do it, because it was really scary. Nobody's done this. There's a few female garages, but I don't do mechanical work. All I do is car customization. So having an all pink garage is something else. It's it's the first of its kind. And I think we've been so blessed. Obviously, there is a bit of a negative side to it sometimes. Men love to ruin things sometimes, and there has been a bit of a backlash. I remember when we first posted that we're doing a giveaway and I was giving a car away. I think I mispronounced one word or something, and everyone was like, just saying it wrong, like, this is not how you say it. And I was just like, it's okay, I understand, like, come on, like, relax. And then I just started making videos about my background, explaining that I actually did work at a car dealership, so I know what I'm talking about, guys, don't worry. It's not just like a girl randomly telling you this is what you need on your car. And I remember on the first week we opened, I had 10,000 DMs just sitting in my Instagram, and I literally could not respond. I was like, there was too many people, I was crying, I was so overwhelmed from all this joy. And they were 90% of women. So when women come in and they tell me like, oh, I don't know what I want to do, that makes me so happy, because I'm like, I'll tell you what you need. I'll tell you what you need. Don't worry about it, you don't need to know everything. Because at the end of the day, I feel like, as someone who didn't really grow up with a father figure, I never learned anything about cars. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to change my oil or do this or do that. And every time I saw an engine light, I'd be like, oh my God, something's wrong now. What do I have to do? I'm gonna have to spend £500 to do this, £500 to do this. And I remember once, like, somebody, there's something going around, like, on TikTok where, like, people are saying, like, oh, charging for premium air. Like, I had a situation where my tyre was damaged, and the tyre would only cost £45, and he charged me £230 for one tyre. So it is a real problem. I think men do genuinely think that because you don't know something, you can get taken advantage of. And I think I went back to the guy, don't worry, and I made sure I put him in his place, and I got my money back. But yeah, like, I would say I don't really have advice is really crazy for me to give, because genuinely it's exactly what Ruth Cadbury said. Like, you don't need to come from anything, and you don't need to have a dream, because I didn't have a dream in my head. I was so persistent on lawyer, because that's what my mom wanted, and I'm still going to do that. I'm still going to get that law degree. It's definitely going to happen, but I would say, like, don't let, like, things define you. Like, you can be anything you want to be. I know that sounds like so cliche and everybody tells you that, but genuinely you can. Like, as somebody who came from nothing, and I literally, when I came to school, I still remember the canteen ladies. Like, that's how much of a little geek and cute nerd I was. You wouldn't ever think somebody like me would make it. So I think if I can do it, like, you girls, 100%, anybody can.
Yes, Shivani, you go for it.
Hi everyone. I'm Shivani Shenki, and I work with McDonald's in Brentford. I actually own the McDonald's in Brentford, as well as two other McDonald's, two by Heathrow Airport. I'm one of 200 franchisees in the UK. There are about 30 women now that are franchisees, of which I think 5 or 6 are of coloured skin. So we're quite a minority. And one of those people is my sister, because I've got a younger sister and she copied me, as they do. And she's also got some restaurants. She's actually picking up Ealing next week, and she's got the one in Iron Bridge and Southall and Hayes. So between the two of us, we've got 7 restaurants. This is not what I wanted to do when I was young at all. To be honest, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I think when I really asked, I had to think about it. I think I wanted to be an air hostess. And my mum slapped me, being Asian, and said, no, you can be a dentist. Let me try. But yeah, it's quite interesting, isn't it, how you start off. I don't think you know what you want to do when you're younger. I didn't. And my parents didn't know either. So my parents came in the 60s with nothing. There was £50 in their pockets. Both my grandfathers had passed away, so my grandmothers were single mums, and they really struggled. I think in those days it was hard, but there were opportunities, and they scrimped and saved and worked, and they bought a shop on London Road, and had newsagents on London Road for many years. They didn't have much money, but they were adamant that my sister and I were very well educated, so they sent us to all girls schools in Hampton, and we had a fantastic education. Holidays are very few and far between, but they were very loving and very supportive, and we've got a mother that completely believes in us and says that you can do anything you want to. I think that's what got us to where we are today. At school, I loved maths. Right, I've got to say, and I actually went on to university and studied maths. And I did a degree in maths. Not dentistry, like my mother asked me to, but maths. And I always felt that you should do something you enjoy, because everything else will come after that. So I did. As well as doing maths, we also had to work. So my first job was at 15 at Shoe Express in Hounslow. I had £2.58 an hour, and it wasn't enough to buy a meal at McDonald's. That was £2.88, I remember that. And every summer we had a job because we had to pay our way to university, etc. Not knowing what I wanted to do, I joined an investment bank. Quite fortunate, I interviewed, got the job, joined an investment bank, a small investment bank, and I was there for about 6 years, and I was the only female in our senior executive team. And some of the stuff I saw was very ladylike, I've got to say. It was in those times when men got away with everything and anything, and things you had to do to take your clients. I shouldn't really say this, but I remember I ended up in a strip bar one night because I had to, because my client wanted it and this is what we had to do. It was just before the financial crash, and my husband turned around and said, you should leave. It's really bad, he's a banker. I was thinking, God, here he goes, he just complained about something else again. But lo and behold, we had a financial crash, and I actually left the business, and I joined an engineering business, and I was there for about 11 years. I loved my job. I used to work in mergers and acquisitions, and I used to buy and sell companies on behalf of this engineering company. I loved it, but I had children, and I was travelling, and I didn't really want to just pushing paper around. And I kind of had this thing in me that I wanted to do something else, something more, and I wanted to build a legacy. I think it was my daughter, she's 14 now, and she was quite young. She said, well, Daddy earns all the money, Mummy just goes to work. How? Right? It's not that. He clothes you and does everything else, it's me. And I thought, right, I'm going to show her. I thought, I'm going to do a business. I had no idea what in, and I actually wanted, at one point I thought about putting together an Asian sort of beauty brand, because there wasn't much at that time for Asian skin. It didn't quite stack up. I didn't really have guts to do it, to be honest. And then it was Dad that mentioned franchising in McDonald's, but he also said that I wouldn't get it. Thanks, Dad. And my mum was like, no, my girls, they can do anything. She's going to do it, she's going to do it. So I applied. They have about 1,000 applicants a year, and they choose 5 people. I didn't think I'd get it, but I also knew in the back of my head, if I didn't try, then I'd never know, right? And you'd always be, okay, what have I done? Tried the opportunity, or what have I gone to that event? You just don't know what's going to happen. So, similar to what a lot of people have said, any opportunities that come about, just go to them, just see what happens. You don't know what's going to come out of it. So I applied. This 9-month interview process. I did 9 months of training in McDonald's, where I worked as a crew member and worked my way up to a manager. I then got my first restaurant 4 years ago, which was Brentford. And then I was quite fortunate because I worked really hard, and there's no substitute for hard work. I was there most days, doing all the things people didn't want to do, talking to, you can imagine the types of customers sometimes that we have and some of the jobs that we have to do there, but I was there, I was with my people, and I loved it, because they're my family, they're my second family, not first, because I think I spend more time with them, and they like me more than my own family do. And I grew and got another 2 restaurants about 20 months later. Out of my 250 employees, I'd say about 60% of them are women from Asian backgrounds. A lot of them are mums, and it works for them because they get to do shift work, and it's what has been, I think, one of the most remarkable things about working, seeing those women grow in confidence and giving opportunities to those women. So it's interesting, this is not my end goal, this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, but this is a pivot for me. So it's interesting when you talk about what you want to do when you grow up. I'm 44 years old. I still don't really know what I want to do when I grow up. I know this is part of my journey. It doesn't stop now, and there'll be something else I want to do with this, and using McDonald's and my position to be able to do something more. But I'm still learning and growing, and that's part of that's part of our journey. And I think we're still learning, and we're always learning until we die. But there are a few things I want to do in my business, and that is promote women and push them and give them confidence to be able to put their foot forward and to follow their dreams. I don't think there's enough of it. I know growing up, I didn't have a role model. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I didn't see people in positions that I thought, oh, let me do that, or let me do this. I remember my first day at Brentford, I had 2 female Nepalese ladies come up to me and said, this is amazing. We've only had male bosses before. We've never had a young person who's Asian and who's female. And it didn't click to me then, but now it does. Actually, we need more representation. We need more people showing that you can do it. In my school, the motto was hope favours the bold. And it is so true. Be curious, be mindful, push boundaries, question things. I was taught from my mum never to question anything, just go along with it. It's fine. Get married, have children, do everything. You don't have to do those things. On a personal note, I'm now going through a divorce, not for any reason in particular, just because we've grown apart. But 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been strong enough to do that. But you get to learn yourself more and more, don't you, as you learn and as you go through life and go through experiences. And as I said, I've got a daughter who I want to teach, so it's fine to make mistakes and I'm always making mistakes, and we make them all the time. I was in a finance committee meeting, because I'm part of the finance committee at McDonald's, and so I look after what's some part of £7 billion worth of, industry money, we have to approve. And I say the wrong things all the time, and it's fine, and I get pulled up on it, and I go, oh, Shafari, you shouldn't have said that, should you? Oh, fuck, sorry. Doesn't matter, right? We all make mistakes, we say things, we should say them, we shouldn't say them. But I do feel like as a female you get pigeonholed and you're supposed to act in a certain way, you're supposed to do things. You don't have to, you can create your own path and do what you want to do. And also I've got a son who's slightly challenging at best, but he's 12 and I want him to see that women can do things and they don't have to, your mum's not there just to cook and clean for you. They're an individual with feelings, and I want him to get, have a partner at some point, and I want him to see that, this is the way you should be with a woman and with a wife, and respect them and grow them. So I'm still working out what I'm doing. There's no answer to anything. But be curious, because there'll be lots of opportunities that come your way, and you can change, because it's not constrained to one way of life. You can do whatever you want and mix it up and change it up and do what you want. It's your life, it's your destiny, and you're never too old to start anything.
Thank you very much indeed, Shafali. I actually know Shafali's mum and her sister, and what I know about the chamber is Shafali's become a friend, which is so lovely. Right, are there any questions? Any questions from the floor? There must be some.
Can I just say, absolutely amazing. Just to sit, and I'm feeling quite emotional. I wish I was. How old are you guys? 14, 16? You're looking at me thinking she's really old. But, wow. What a life you've all had. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Julia. Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts? And from the panel, even? Yeah, go for it.
For the young entrepreneur and business owner, hats off, amazing. Tell me about your recruitment. Have you struggled to recruit people into your business who believe in similar values and ethos?
So I would say it was really hard to recruit, okay? It's very difficult, especially when you're just a one person everything. And I was really strong on the fact that I didn't want to recruit anybody, and I wanted to make sure that it was just female orientated. The problem is men are a bit sassy now, and you get this thing where it's like, oh, what do you mean I can't work for you because I'm a man? I'm like, it just defeats the whole purpose of my business. And I feel like I wanted women to just feel completely comfortable in talking to anybody. And how I went about it is, first I actually recruited my best friend. So she became my personal assistant. She does all the stuff that I have too many anger issues to deal with. But yeah, so we kind of got together and started speaking about how we would recruit. And then because we had grown a platform on TikTok through my own social media, I kind of started posting. It's always TikTok, isn't it? I just realized that. I started posting about it and asking girls who are interested in cars or the car industry and things like that. And because I was also really close with my manager at Aldi, I asked him for the application processes, because I saw when I went through it's a very long process to go through to get a job like that. You have to go through an assessment day and all that. And I saw loads of girls, but I was the only one that came out on the other side. So I asked him where did you think? So Indeed was my best friend, and I went through it really selectively. It took a lot, and the girls that are actually working with me now, I trained them. So it wasn't a hire you because you know everything. I genuinely, we put time into them, and I think we built them up. Now some of them are a bit better than me. But yeah, that's how it works. I think it's really important, because I was kind of giving in a little bit with the men, because it was kind of okay, maybe I should just have one man walking around or doing something so it doesn't look, sexist or anything like that. But my best friend was like, no, we're not doing that. It's defeating the whole purpose of the customization business. And also we were having problems with the name because it was a really complicated process. But my business is called Fem Customs, right? FEMCUSDOMS. And trademarking it was hard because it was just a mission and a half. And then yeah, we managed to get it, and it's just completely female orientated, yeah.
Are there any other questions? Yes.
I would love that was really amazing. I have to second what this lady said here. It was really, really wonderful to hear what so many of you said and like the differences between your journeys as well. I think that we live in an age today where personal brand has never been so important. So I would love to hear how your personal brand, if it has impacted your business in any way. Like, I definitely would love to hear that from you. And I was like already going to come and ask you that after. But obviously you've kind of poured into this idea of like TikTok, and it kind of sounds like you had a social media profile and that was your brand. But I think if we think about, you know, what the girls are growing up into today, you look at the Grace Beverleys, you know, which I'm sure so many of you know, and Chrissy Seller, and even whether you like her or not, Kim Kardashian, like the reality is these people with massive personal brands, it's growing their business into a completely different dimension. So, yeah, something around personal brand.
So interestingly, I think as you grow older, you get more confident, right? And everything I do now is on a personal level. So I won't do it unless it means something to me. And I think that's what has led to my success, because when you're passionate about something, it naturally comes to you. So I've got a very solid management team, faithful management team. I do look after them, but they would do anything for me. And that's also because I care and I look after them. And I think it comes down to your values, right? And I've set these values in myself, and they're emulated those in my business. And as a leader, you have purpose, you have vision, but it's how do you deliver that, and how do you communicate that to your people so they buy into it and they buy into you. And if they can see that you're genuine, and they can see that you mean it, then it gets, transferred down the line. But it's being honest as well, right? Honesty comes about who you are. What are your boundaries? What's good? What works for you? What won't work for somebody else? But that's fine. But it's interesting because I'm not your typical leader. I'm not in there shouting at people. It's my own style. And I think that's what brings it, and I think that's what everybody should know, that everybody's different, everybody's individual, they've got their own way of doing things. You will naturally find something that you want to go into, and that will emulate who you are as a person, and that's how it will be. You can be successful if you choose yourself, if you choose your people.
Thank you. I'm not sure whether I'm asking the question on personal brand or personal branding, because social media has changed our relationship with the outside world in a way. I grew up and most of my life has been in a world where you do what you do, you think what you think, you write what you write, or in politics, speak what you speak, and then you put it out on social media some of the time. And that's still how I work. I think nowadays it feels like you young people, my children are 30 and 32, I think even, young people who are under 25, it feels to me like you're under pressure in order to exist, you have to be out there on social media, on TikTok and so on. And, you are developing, and of course I'm sure you've been told, anything you put out now is permanent. So, employers look through your social media accounts, even if you put, and it certainly happens in politics, and people have lost their opportunities in politics because of something they liked 5 years ago, let alone something they put out or something that was found about their personal life. And that really scares me. I'm so boring, and social media came late in my career, so therefore there's nothing out there, I don't think, that I can't justify or isn't part of my social brand, as it were. And I'm not the right person to give advice about how you handle that, but except to say, just be aware that if anybody takes any photo or film or video, anything of you, and it goes on a camera, even if it's private between you and your partner or you and your mates, it can get out there, and that is worrying. So, as I say, I think I speak, and then I put it out on social media. I hope I live my values, and I hope what I put out there does express my values as my Labour values, which I think are very close to who I am.
So I'm in an industry where branding is key, but I'm notoriously awful at social media. I'll be getting a lesson from you afterwards. So what I found is actually personal branding is what you build personally and in real life. Obviously the brand of the Women in Business Breakfast has built from us having coffees and having communication with one another, and that's how I've built my business up. I've spent 20 years networking an industry, so when I created my business, I already knew everybody, and when I started out, we were still faxing. So it wasn't about social media, it was about the connections that I made and I built, and I've had artists who have followed me from every agency I've been, and when I set up on my own, they came with me because they knew who I am, they knew my values, so they knew my brand. So now I have to learn from said Gen Zers how to put that out on social media, because what my passion is now is socioeconomic diversity, and how can I support more underrepresented groups, whether they're rurally. I was talking to a rural group actually, how I'm going to support them in getting access to what we all have so easily. And I think that's now going to be part of my brand. But how can I do better with branding that and those services? So I think there's still a lot to learn. There's a lot we can learn from the younger generation. They are so savvy. They are absolutely phenomenal. So where we know how to be savvy in business, they know how to be savvy elsewhere. So I'm looking forward to more conversations with you young people and learning from you, because the questions you asked me when I was buzzing around the room were fantastic. So you're already a step ahead.
Thank you very much. And there's a question down here, yeah.
So university fees can sometimes be very expensive. Would you recommend going to university or building your way up in your business?
That's a really, really good question. I would say.
Sorry, can you repeat this?
So she asked if she said that university fees can be really extortionate, which I completely agree with. And if we would recommend that she pursues university.
Yeah, or building your way up into a business.
So as somebody who's done both, and I think we've all kind of, sorry, just wanted to clarify. I would say you get a lot of help nowadays. So obviously, student loan is a huge thing. I think everybody pretty much relies on that, to be honest with you. Especially if you're from like middle working class family. So I would say that you should do it. I think if you have like an idea for a business, you can always do it as something on the side. That's how I think most businesses kind of grow. But I would recommend university. I really think that it's genuinely, just to have that degree there, it's a huge thing. And especially if you kind of know what you want to do, it's always good to have a backup plan, I think. My mom's really instilled that in my brain. And you know, at the end of the day, if for example I somehow wake up one day and I hate cars, I can go and be a lawyer. So you know, you just make sure you do a degree that you want to do, and it's for a job that you want. You can do both. Of course you can.
I agree with you, Lakshmi, that actually going to university is an amazing experience, but it isn't the only option. And I took some girls out for breakfast just before this meeting today, and we went down to the church, and some of them are in the front here, and we were talking about my own children. And I've got 3 children, one son who's really academic, always wanted to go to university, really worked hard in school, went to one of the best universities in the country. I've got a second son who hated school, didn't understand why he had to learn all of the academic subjects, and was only interested in film and TV. He left school at 16 and he went to a film college, and he now works on Bridgerton. And he's only young, and he's just started a career, but it's a completely different route. And then my daughter, who's still in sixth form, has no interest in university and wants to be a professional footballer. So I think, you know, it's about finding, and I know someone else said this here, it's about finding what you love, what you really want to do, and I think the rest does fall into place. But I don't want you to think that university is the only option, because it isn't. There are so many other ways that you can be successful.
Also, just a quick word, don't forget the apprenticeship route. Aya at the back of the room, who is sort of part of the chamber team, is my right arm, along with Lisa, who's my left arm. Yeah, consider that as well.
I would love to be able to say that we could go back to no fees for university, but you know, we've inherited an economic situation which we can't afford that. In Scotland, there are no fees for university. But and Sally and I and some of us older women here, when we went to university, we not only didn't have to pay fees, the government also provided a grant for us to live on. All I would say, if you read Martin Lewis, moneySavingExpert.com, he says, don't worry about the loan, the student loan. If you haven't paid it off in however long it is, it'll be wiped out. It's not counted against you for credit rating and so on. And you know, young people, you know, my children have got that, but they're not worrying about it. Okay. And there's a variety of reasons for that, and I say read Martin Lewis on the subject. But I would repeat what others have said. University is an option, but it's also, I didn't know what I wanted to be, what career option I was going to do. So the university course I chose was the social sciences. We had 5 different subjects in the first year, and then that was 2 in the second and 1 in the third. So there are lots of different types of courses you can do, including many university courses are not vocational. So if you don't have a clear career in mind, and there's subjects or ways of teaching or whatever, or a place in the country you want to go and learn, or in another country, you know, there are different ways of thinking about how you choose your course. But I would definitely do it. And as Sally said, there are apprenticeship degrees as well, where you get paid to go to university.
Any more questions?
So you've all talked about having difficulties and challenges on your journeys. Did you prioritise financial gain or your mental health long term?
So we all had troubles and strifes on our journeys, and did we prioritise mental health or financial gain? I feel like this is my specialist subject. I would say I prioritise mental health. I think your mental health is very important. I don't do anything for money. I obviously make money, but that's not my first priority. That's not the biggest thing on my agenda. I actually raised this yesterday amongst the young people I was speaking to at the music conference yesterday, and I said, you know, I'm very lucky to do what I love, first and foremost, and that's very good for my mental health. Making money is secondary. I think you have to do what you love. When you enjoy it, you're good at it. I think, it's a really great example. You love cars, you're bloody good at it, and you're a success when you're 21. That's a great example. I've loved music all my life. I'm good at bossing people about. So I make my clients money, which in return makes me money. So, think about what you're good at. I'm pretty sure your daughter's an amazing footballer, and she's going to be playing for England one day, and she's going to make money doing that. So I would always prioritise your mental health, for me personally.
I would just say I had exactly this conversation last night when I was sitting down talking to my son after a governor's meeting, and we were talking about jobs that you love, and he was moaning about his job in Bridgeton and saying he hated it and how boring it was and how long he would be able to do this for, and I was an NPC, whatever that is. I get up every morning, go to work and seem to come home and enjoy talking about my job still. And actually what I said to him is, I love talking about my job because it doesn't feel like a job. And he couldn't quite understand that, why I'd like to go to work in the morning. And I don't mind getting up to go to work in the morning because it never feels like I'm going to work. And I think the one message I'd send out to you is that do something you love, because when you love it, it never feels like a job. And I think that's really important.
Yes, to add to that, my eldest daughter is a freelance producer, theatre producer. She is poor as a church mouse, but she absolutely loves what she does. And I look up to her and I think, wow, you've got your priorities right.
It's similar to hires, but when you face those kind of struggles and weeks where you kind of want to give up, how do you kind of persevere into continuing on and being successful like you are?
I'm going to just talk my own experience. This morning was a bit of a tough one for me. This event today has given me my sort of mojo back. This is what I enjoy doing. You always question yourself. Sometimes you're overtired and you just think, oh lordy, what am I up to? But it's seeing a group of like-minded people who support what we're doing.
Actually, my longest employee has decided to leave because she wants to fully focus on becoming a singer, which I completely support. So I've been a bit in a panic the past week on how am I going to replace this irreplaceable person who's helped us grow and has just been phenomenal. And we haven't told the artist yet, but I've decided she is so amazing. I'm going to split her role into. And I was saying to someone in the room, I can't remember, I was saying that I've decided to split the room, and I've had 2 people who've accepted the job, which is amazing because I was really sort of worried about how we were going to survive, because she's been such a amazing tower of strength through so many things, and how we could replace not just her in terms of the work she does, but the individual, because working with artists, it's really personal. It's like, we're like mums, we're like sisters. And I need the right personalities to work with me. And I found that in 2 people. 2 people I've worked with previously in the past 20 years, and they are looking for flexible work because they have parent and caring responsibilities, so I'm also helping them there. So you find a way through, but I do also find having a list of goals. Every year I set my goals for the year. And I like to look back, and if I haven't reached them, I add them to next year's list. But I always like writing down what I'd love to achieve in a year, and I've done that since I was young. And I think that it's good to have goals. Have ideas. You're not always going to reach them. Some things are really going to go badly, which is fine. But just have them to look at and just keep striving. Just keep moving forward. That's all you can do.
I was just thinking about your question, and obviously I don't know where that's coming from, but there are obviously times, and for some people it's more often than others, where life is just too difficult and you can't see, you go through periods where you can't see a way out of it. And I have a close relative who was going through that, but actually he needed outside help and was reluctant to ask for it, and got that help, which is a mixture of medical health support, but also the importance of people around him who helped him to go back into seeing things positively. So, you know, we all go through difficult times, but there is always an answer, and somebody else will tell you, look, you don't have to think like that. Actually, you've got opportunities. You know, you've got to look positively. You've got to look for opportunities. But ask for help, ask for support. There's networking, mentoring, even going to the doctor. You know, life has ups and downs, and as I say, sometimes hearing good things about taking opportunities and, you know, getting out, you know, taking opportunities, following up a phone call or whatever, sounds, you know, sometimes that's really hard, but you've got to do it. But, you know, do ask for support, advice, help, mentoring, and even health advice if you need it, and ensure that others around you who are having difficulties do the same, because we go through phases in life, and there is always an upland, but, you know, there is another side. Okay.
So, where have we got to? Right, okay.
What advice would you give to someone my age who wants to start business?
How to gain business experience? Well, I would, yes. Yes.
I think it should be national service, but others would disagree. But just go out and start working, because that's when you're going to learn how to deal with people. Everything's about people these days, right? And how you build relationships with people, how you communicate, how you work in a team. So go and get a job, and get yourself out there, because you'll start building experience, you'll start building connections, you'll start building friends, and through that, you'll then be able to understand what it is like to work in a business, and then be able to one day run your own business. Very simply put, not advocating, we are always hiring as well, even when you're 16. Yes.
So, like, in times when you like wanted to give up and like stop doing what you're doing, what stopped you from giving up and getting to where you are?
I'm there most days. A few weeks ago, I had a milkshake thrown at me, just for good measure, just because there was something wrong, or, you know, it was just a customer having a bad day. This morning I had an explosion at my Heathrow restaurant. There was a carbon dioxide tank blew up, and the fire brigade were there, and they had to close the restaurant. I wake up most mornings and there's something gone wrong, and I'm thinking, my God, why am I doing this? But these are just temporary blips, because then I go into work and I see my people and how happy they are and how much they love what they're doing, and that reminds me why I'm there and why I'm doing it, and the opportunities that I'm giving these people that wouldn't necessarily have those, who wouldn't have believed in them, but I'm there to believe in them and to push them. So when you do have a down, there's always a plus coming out of it, and you learn from those downs as well. I'm learning all the time that something gone wrong, it's fine. You know, it's the universe's way of teaching me that something better is going to come along, or something different is going to come along. And just be positive and take a deep breath and sleep on it as well sometimes. Because sometimes I'm like, I get like a customer complaint, you know, I get really angry. I'm like writing a response. I'm like, no, let me sleep on this. It'll be better in the morning. I'm calmer. Yeah, I should do this.
I think. Oh, sorry, was it Boki and then Jeanette? I think we need to draw it to an end. Boki, over to you.
So I wanted to highlight the power of mentoring. I've got adult children who I tell all the time, you know, find someone who is in a position where you think you want to be, and try and encourage them, you know, find out how they got to where they are. And I think it's really important at this age to find somebody who, you know, you want to aspire to be, or you like what they're doing, and choose them as your mentor. It could be a teacher, it could be your auntie who's successful, your uncle, anyone. But I just wanted to highlight the power of mentoring. I think we'll mention that as well.
So find yourselves a mentor, all right? There's plenty of candidates up here. Jeanette.
I just want to say what a fantastic event this has been today, and I've been to quite a lot of meetings, chairing
Chamber and others, but the personal stories from everybody, and then the credit to the school, the engagement of the young audience who've asked so many interesting questions today. So I just want to say a big thank you to the school and to the panel. Thank you.
I think we'll draw to a close. I think there's plenty of coffee and pastries at the back of the room. I just want to thank our panel again for giving up their time this morning to be with us. So another round of appreciation.